Yep, yeah, recording started. All right, mate. Here we are. This is our podcast.
They don't want to be locked into a house or an apartment or some space.
Got to follow the social distancing rule.
More social distancing keeps more people healthy.
It's like, oh, you guys good at talking shit. Why don't you just do a podcast? As soon as you try to do a podcast, we sound like a bunch of muppets. Morning, boys.
Morning.
Good afternoon.
Early one for us. Late last week, early today. Nice t-shirt, Jonesy.
Yeah, mate. I did a big bulk order. You know, you get those ads on Facebook and you think, oh, this is spam. I got one fed to me. It was late Saturday night and it was like 80stees.com. And I've ordered like 7 or 8.
I remember you
so I've
talking
got
about
ones from like Coming to America. This is obviously off Old School. You know, geez, but you know their quality is when you rip them out of the packet and it smells like the hottest fart. Like this thing just reeked. I don't know what factory it was slammed out in, but there was obviously gastro that went through the joint.
What are you wearing, Jules?
Mate,
you've got a ripper on too.
I'm cross promoting.
Oh,
look at that! Life in the Peloton t-shirt.
A very good podcast. If you haven't listened to it, do yourself a favor. It's a belter.
Yeah, if you can only listen to one podcast a week, click exit right now. Scoot across to Life in the Peloton and stop wasting your time.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of podcasts, I listened to yours with Miller yesterday, Jonesy, on the drive home from Andorra.
Oh, yeah.
You've been cheating on us.
What a cracker.
Look, I had that podcast before this one. Let's be honest. And you know, I'm trying to build a brand. It's like a boy band. This, you know, I want to. So
you're saying we're the mistress? The social distance is the mistress in your relation, your podcast relationships.
Yep, you're my second and third wives.
How does it feel to have 2 mildly successful podcasts?
Oh, look, I think the backstage has got a long way to go, mate. Let's be realistic. You know, you just baby steps, but like anything. You did a bit of a Back to the Future and listened to a few of the early episodes of this one, and geez, do yourself a favour. Might have to delete them.
I listened last night. I was like, I should actually go back and have a look at our our early podcasts. Fuck, they were shit. I mean, I wouldn't say we're sharp now, but whew, we were rough back then.
Real tough listen, was it? I mean, I think it was back in that moment where you were like, oh, we can't swear, or we can't just talk. You know, we have to like try and, you know, you're like, oh, better delete that. And then we just didn't, you know, we just were like, we're just treading on, we're just walking around eggshells for half an hour. Like, oh.
Yeah, Jonesy and I were talking about that on the phone last week, actually, how when we first started this, we didn't know what line we could cross. So we were like always on the fence or like bordering like on trying to be well behaved and everything. But now, as the
and you know nobody
gone
listens.
On, yeah, now we've relaxed a little bit now, so we sort of we don't give a shit as much.
There was a lot of I think you're putting a lot more prep into the episodes. I think that helps as well. There was a lot of dead air where you'd be sort of silent. You'd be like, yeah. So what else you got? That's not good podcasting.
Well, I've done the opposite. I've done less prep than I don't do prep. I woke up about 10 minutes ago.
Well, you do, yeah.
You guys tell us what we're talking about.
Well, you do come across a lot more relaxed, George, and you don't sit on the fence as much, which is good. You got a voice.
Yeah, you were so neutral.
Oh, right.
I was like, this is not the
people analysts of our early podcasting careers.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's almost like us talking about zits straight off the bat. We might as well move on.
Okay.
This is an exciting episode, boys, because there's a couple of landmark things happening today. Firstly, this is going to be the last episode we do where we haven't raced, because next time we get online and record our podcast, George and I would have both done a race in theory. George is heading off today to a race, and I'm heading off on Thursday to a race. So that's a bit of a landmark. So that's going to see what happens. You mean
you guys have actually got jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're back to it. I'm off in a few hours. We better hurry up. I'm going to Burgos.
Right.
We also have a new segment to introduce, which I've been baiting the the listeners on social media about it. One guy actually commented and said, I thought Legend of Bellin was the pinnacle of podcasting, so I don't know how it's going to go up from there. Could be right, but we're going to do it anyway. So, do you want to explain it, Jonesy, or what?
Is this the fishing?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Okay.
You got another one. You got another one in mind.
Well, I think we're going to regularly talk about years that are better than 2020 as well. That could be classed as a new segment as well. But now the fishing, what it is we're going to throw it out there on WhatsApp to some mates and see if they want to join the show live. And so basically we're dangling the hook and we'll see who nibbles. We could potentially in this show have 3 special guests that come in and pinch it for 5-10 minutes, tell a few yards, and then we piss them off. But if they're good, they can stay on for the rest of the show. It's going to be very interesting. I've fired off my message before.
You've already done yours. All right. So I've given no heads up, and I'm just currently thinking of someone I can fish out to. But all right, I've got one I can chuck a line to.
My guy's not good with any sort of technology. And he hasn't done the double tick, so he hasn't read this yet. So I don't even know if he uses WhatsApp that much. So probably should have picked a better one.
What Jonesy said is right. We could get 3 special guests, but equally we could get no guests. So yeah, the idea behind this segment is we basically don't word anybody up as we start recording, which we've done just now. We send off a random message to a friend saying, "Hey mate, we've just started recording. If you got 5 minutes free, jump on and say good day." So could go well, could have been an absolute flop, but if it does go well, every week we get some pretty cool guests on, and whoever gets the biggest catch wins, I suppose.
Well, you're not allowed to give away who you sent it to, but was your tactic, Bills, to go for someone that you had a really good chance of them saying yes, or did you go something a little bit more difficult but better value? Could be funnier. Yeah,
that's it. Well, I've gone for a. I feel like the fish are biting today. I've found a hot spot. The tuna are on a run. I've just casted a line, and so I've got a good feeling about getting a catch today. But I reckon as the segment evolves, I'll start firing stuff out. Slide into direct messages and slide into DMs, or maybe Obama or whoever. Just see what we can get. You never know.
All right. Well, I've just sent one out. And I won't give away anything, but they'll be very happy to see me wearing this T-shirt from El Salvador Rugby. Also, what we want to talk about is this is a little bit of this might circle us back to walking on eggshells. Is I was just reading an article about transgender women in sport, and it got me thinking about a few things. And my girlfriend Caitlin, obviously, if you don't know, she's a ultra runner, and we started talking about how she would feel if someone transitioned from female to male and came into their sport and just started dominating. And this happened actually in cycling, and the current Masters world champion, I think like 35 to 40 or something like that, Canadian lady. She's a 6-foot monster, come in, transition from male to female, came in, smashed everybody. What are your boys' thoughts on that?
Well, imagine if you transitioned, George. They'd be like, male transitions, 4'5", 53 kilos.
I'm not sure.
You're actually quite tall.
Male transitions and finishes dead last.
Well, this got me thinking. What do you reckon if Spratty transitioned or something the other way to us? Like the best woman cyclist transitioned to male. Would we be crying like, oh, this is unfair? Because I feel like the best woman would probably put away a few of the men.
It depends on the sport, doesn't it? If it's chess, no one gives a shit. But if it's something that's obviously a little bit more physical, I think, isn't there guidelines around they've got to do chromosome or hormonal therapy?
So what it is now, so I guess the question has to be it's not, the question has to be the transgender females who lower their testosterone, which is what they have to be, it's required by the current policy. Do they still have a massive performance advantage over biologically born women? And so what they have to do now is they have to do 12 months of hormone therapy. and they have to bring their testosterone like low enough into the female range. But like it leaves the question of like residual. Have you ever heard about like the residual doping theory? Like people that dope for years, and then they go clean or whatever. They've made all the changes and they still have all the advantage in their like say cyclists or whatever. They might have been like, oh yeah, I'm reformed now, I don't dope anymore. They let them back into the sport, but they've still got all the, especially with like growth hormone and things like that, all the things that went on. They still have this residual advantage, and that's basically the argument. The big thing, if a female transitions, if a male transitions to a female, does she then still have all the, like, she's been a male for 30 years. She's had the testosterone level. She's grown, like, testosterone is what makes you grow tall, what makes you, like, big muscles and all that stuff. So, like, they say yeah, exactly. So in weightlifting, like, it doesn't matter if you're, like, you think about you at the end of a grand tour, right? Your testosterone is probably, like, -5, you know? You're shooting blanks, everything. I mean, you're still better than, you'd still have a massive advantage going to race with the woman, wouldn't you?
Do you reckon we transition slowly throughout Grandies?
Yeah, I think we start transitioning about. I start transitioning about midway through the second week.
Start sitting for a piss.
Yeah, I do that anyway. I've done that since I've started cycling. Midnight.
You know what?
Sit down for a piss.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh mate, do you not?
When you're tired.
Do you not sit? Do you get up and piss in the night and not sit down?
Yeah. What?
Do you have to turn the light on or what?
Yeah. What?
You get up. You're telling me you.
This is normal behaviour. You get up, you flick the light on, you have a slash. You sit down.
You leave the light off.
And you wake up.
And you doze off. I always doze off a bit like that. So I sit like that with my hand on my knee. And I speaking of this is an example why we do it, Jonesy.
Yeah.
This is an example of why you do it. One year at Tour of Catalonia, I was in the breakaway, and I ended the stage, and I was completely rooted. I was so tired, and I got back into my room. We were staying basically on the finish line. Went to the hotel, and I thought, all right, what do I need to do? I need to take a piss. I need to have a shower. So I was taking a piss, standing up as you advocate for, and while I was standing up having a piss, I was like, oh, I might as well turn the shower on while I'm pissing.
Oh,
and I
no.
just completely forgot that I was pissing because I was so tired, and I just moved, and I just reached into the shower and just turned the shower on, and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm not even facing the toilet now. I'm just pissing all through the shower.
Could you imagine the cleaner the next day walking in just going, oh, fuck my life.
I was a real dark yellow piss as well, just a real dehydrated, like been in the break, drank 2 bottles for 7 hours kind of piss, you know, like just corroding the bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, it's a good tip. It definitely makes sense. But
if you have a room with someone, Jonesy, that gets up and turns the light on, and when you take it, like, that's a shocker.
Yeah. Yeah, but I it was just normal. Like I wouldn't think too much of it. But now,
and what about the noise?
It makes sense.
You wake your roommate up.
No, you've sold it.
I'm
gonna give it a crack. Sarah will probably appreciate it. And you're right. If it is pitch black and you take that risk and hope that you're a dead-eye dick, but yeah, that's bit me a few times. So
also, if Sarah challenges you, says, "Oh, you took a piss in the night and you left the toilet seat down," you go, "Yeah, well, I'll tell you why, because I sat on it."
Yeah, there you go.
Huh.
Back to your point, George. I think it does. Oh, hang on. We've got a nibble.
We've got a bite.
We've got a nibble, boys. We've got a bite.
Who we
He's
got?
on.
There he is. Yes.
Oh, hang on,
mate.
So,
I'm liking the attire there, mate.
Thanks for the birthday present, mate.
We've just been running a Life in the Peloton promotional episode.
I'll tell you what.
Go.
We should introduce you. We've got Mitch Docker here. So my line has been casted, and he's taken the bait. Mitch loves a bit of burley, and here he is.
I was starving. I'm just like one of those dumb sort of mullets at the bottom of the Girona River there who would just eat anything.
Oh, hey, Mitch. What's going on, mate?
Good, mate. I've been actually, as you would probably be able to understand this, Jonesy, we've been to the park this morning. We've been for a little ride, and I've started doing some work already, and I realised how loud I was being. I was like, hang on, it's 9:15 in the morning on Sunday morning. People probably aren't wanting to hear me saw a piece of wood at this time of the day.
I can hear
But
Marlo in the background.
For me, it feels like midday.
And when are you racing next, Mitch?
I'm off to Strada Bianchi on Wednesday. So first time for me down on the white roads in Italy.
Hey, does this change in the classics, like for things like Roubaix? Does this fall into your lap, mate? Because there'll be some other guys that might be like, it's clashing with the Grandies or whatever.
You mean Strada Bianchi, or you mean just how the classics are going to roll?
Just some of the bigger races down the track, because I think Roubaix falls in, it clashes with the Giro and the Vuelta on that same day, yeah?
Yeah, I agree, Jonesy. I reckon in all the races, as well as the Tour and the Giro and the classics, that it's going to be spread thin, and also people's form's going to be really different too, because they haven't had the normal prep, and also the weather's going to play a part. Like if you think of San Remo, like I think half the guys' heads are going to be cocked looking at, on the beach, looking at bikinis, and the rest of us are going to be trying to race.
Looking at the white pointers.
I've got a lot of faith in Mitch's form, because me and Mitch actually adopted an identical preparation. When we got the news of the season, it all gone tits up. Me and Mitch, one of the only few people I knew, at least everyone else was just taking this long, slow approach to the season. They start with like 10-hour weeks, 15-hour weeks, and then slowly building up, and then the season starts. But Mitch, tell us a little bit about how you did it, because you just came in full steam. You were either on or you were off, and how do you reckon that's going for you?
Mate, that's exactly right. When I caught up with you, you had to come around to my place, drop something off just as COVID sort of opened up. And we were discussing this idea of like, do we just sort of keep tickling it along here for another couple of months and just sort of hold this form before we really have to get into it? And you're like, nah, I'm just going to have a break. I'm going to train hard. I'm going to have a break, and I'm going to train hard. And I was like, sounds like a good idea. So then, I called my coach. I was like, you know what I want to do? I've got this great idea myself. I've thought up this idea. I think I want to train hard, then have a few days off, and then train hard again. And that's the theory I adopted. I had a chat to you a few months later and went, mate, I just sort of stole your theory. And for me, it works because I'm either got to be on or off, whether that's drinking, whether that's training, whatever it is. Let's do it hard. Let's do it, all or nothing. So I think that's worked for me, and I'm a bit skeptical of how many races we're really going to get. So I'm like, there's no point coming into this season sort of going, you know what, I need a few races to warm up. I reckon I'm just going to try and hit it hot and hang on to it.
Hey, Mitch,
we were training together the other day, Mitch and I. Are you regretting that? we were out training the other day, and we were both on our knees, and I wasn't even doing anything. I was just riding around, and Mitch had these hard efforts, and we were just like, we thought, if we ride together, we'll get through this long ride. It was the last day of the block, effectively. It was the last big training ride before we start racing. We were just like a pair of negativity, eh? But you got through it, mate.
I did. I tell you, I was a mess yesterday. I got back because there's always that theory like, as long as I just get through it, doesn't matter how hard I go, how deep I go, I'll be fine if I can just do it. But you forget about that day after. And I was like, oh, that's fine. I'll do it. I'll leave at 6 a.m. I'll drive back to Girona. I got here at 9 a.m. and I had a full day with the family and kids, which I thought was just going to be great. But I was a shell of myself. I was in no mood to sort of do that sort of family stuff. And I was like, this was a bad idea. I should have taken a bit more time to get back.
And then spent today as an abusive father.
Yeah, you didn't want to be around me yesterday. I was like I was Buells when we were together, except that it wasn't on the bike. I just had to be around people, and I was a negative mess. So I feel better today.
Hey, Mitch, we gave your potty a good shout out at the start of the show, Life in the Peloton. It's just gone from strength to strength, mate. What's some tips to give the boys on how to produce a really good podcast?
To produce one, yeah. Look, I started off pretty rough because I didn't really know what was going to happen with it, and I think one thing that a lot of people have liked about my podcast is it actually hasn't died, as opposed to a lot of other podcasts. Because you get to that period and you're like, yeah, this was a good idea, but this is a bit of a pain in the ass now. But then, it's sort of kicked along there for 4 or 5 years, which I think people like. They're like, okay, this guy's got some consistency. But personally, myself, I listen back at my old ones that I did in the beginning, and I'm like, would you just shut up, Mitch? Like, one thing I've learned as someone on there is that you actually have to listen to the person you're interviewing, opposed to just going, you know what? I've actually got a few points about that myself. So listening back on my own podcast is sort of a nice little lesson too.
Have you got any memorable episodes, mate? Any ones that stand out over the journey?
Well, look, there's ones right back in the beginning. I did, while Buells is here, I did do one right back in the beginning with him because I was like, you know what? I really need to do a podcast on this, on Parry Neats. I'm like, what can we do? And Buells was rooming with me, and him and I were off early in the prologue. And I thought, hang on, Buells is a bit of a prologue specialist. I haven't done one really on like a technical thing. Let's get Buells going. So we get back. I always remember this is quite funny because we did our prologue. We get back. We have a shower. We do everything. We record a podcast, and we're like, the race is actually still going. That's how early we went off. And we were commenting on the races. We're doing like halfway through a pod. It was like hours after we'd even gone. So I thought that was quite funny. I heard that one not so long ago the other day. But the other ones that stick in the mind, I did like doing Scott McGrory back in the early times because I wasn't very good at it, and Scott can really tell a good story. So,
well, that's his nickname, Scott McStory.
That's right. So I just was able to just put the mic on, and he just went with it, and I was like, "Wow, this is such an awesome podcast." No power. We have no power. See myself. My next door neighbor, we've got a blackout here. So yeah, it was great because I was like, oh, actually, if you get a good guest, they make a good podcast. So that was a good learning experience too.
Hey, I got a question for you, Mitch, before we let you go. Do you stand up to piss or sit down? Because we were. I'll put some context to that. We were just schooling Jonesy on the when he gets up in the middle of the night to go for a piss, he turns the light on, he stands up, and he just lets it go.
And he still sprays it round.
Well, sometimes I don't turn the light on and take a bit of a risk.
George and I are sit downers. We sit down.
Yeah. What do you do, Mitch?
I was going to say I can go one step further than Jonesy. I don't put the light on because I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to fully wake up. And I think just using the senses, you feel the edge of the bowl with your legs, and you're like, yeah, I've done.
So you straddle it a little bit.
No, just let it get the shin sort of. Okay, that's the bowl. That's in between. All right, I'm good to go. And then you just use your other sensor, your ears, and you listen for where it's falling.
How many times do you pissed in the bath?
Bidet. I've done bidet a couple times.
I thought that was a water fountain.
But I don't sit. Like, I've been told to sit, staying at some of my European teammates' houses, and after a couple of days, they're like, would you mind sitting on the toilet? And you're like, how would you know? And then you're like, I must be a bit of a dirty bastard.
Got any other questions, George?
No, I think we'll wrap that up as a successful first fishing segment.
That was great.
Mate, that
Nice
line,
one, boys.
that bait was bloody good bait. I'll stick with that bait next week.
Yeah, what are you using? Squid.
All right, give him a kiss, Bills, and send him back in the river.
See you, boys.
Cheers, mate.
Adios.
That was great.
All right.
1-0, boys. 1-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, my guy still has not been on WhatsApp. I reckon
Mine was last
pushing
seen in
shit
March
uphill.
2019, so could be pushing shit uphill.
I'm trying to hook a Loch Ness monster. Can I tell you who it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Peter Weaning.
Oh, there's no way you're getting him on.
I know. I really went for the long cast.
You're like one of those fishermen who's like, I've done a bit of fishing. You dropped a couple of lines off the wharf when you were 8 years old with the old man down in Geelong or something. And then you've gone all right, tonight I'm going to go out deep sea and I'm going for a giant squid or something.
Yeah.
I'm going to harpoon some bloody some endangered whales.
Good on Mitch. Good on Mitch for coming on the show, though. Like, he's a good bloke, Mitch.
It's good value, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was we sort of got a bit sidetracked there. So what's your boy's view? Can males who have transitioned to females come into cycling? So the main topic we'll be familiar with, I guess, in cycling is Rachel McKinnon. Is that, in your eyes, is that fair for her to come in? She's done a year of, she had to go through the hormone treatment, come in and win the world championships at the Masters track cycling.
I reckon it's case by case. I reckon they've got to have a look, and it might be like when you go to a theme park. You must be this tall to go on this ride. Maybe they've got limits where they go. If you're physically off the charts.
How do you define that? I mean, there has to be a way to define. There has to be like it's some way. It's kind of like. Do you know what it's kind of like? It's like remember Oscar Pistorius when he ran with the blades. Pistorius. Jeez. He before he went to jail for murder, he would he have been that fast if he had normal legs? And it was such a it was a great story.
That's why you've got a third umpire. That's why you can put it to the world.
But this bloke needs something
whatever
to work it on. Because
Oscar hasn't got a leg to stand on in this argument.
Jeez.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
This is going to be one of those ones. Yeah. You're talking at the top of the show. Oh, geez, listen to the old shows. And, mate. Well, you've just fallen back into the pit of shit.
You're taking us back to March with that.
Yeah. I your gut shot says, look, it's probably not going to be the best thing if women that have transitioned come in and compete in these physical events and just mop up the medals. Obviously people are going to go, oh, fuck, hang on, what's happening here? But at the same time, there's this whole thing around, well, they want to be treated like women. They've transitioned, and where do you draw the line? So
it's a great argument for the moral crusaders, like the people that go, well, everyone should have the right to compete fairly, right? So they have that train of argument, and they go, well, everybody has the right to be viewed as they choose, as the sex that they choose. And it's just a perfect collision of these two arguments, like both that people, both of us would all agree, all of us would agree like this and this. But these two collide, and you get in an impasse when these two arguments collide. And then one of them has to lose. One of these moral thoughts or one of these arguments has to lose this. Either they can be treated 100% as the sex that they choose, or everybody absolutely has the right to a fair competition. And they both come into this two-way thing, and then one of them comes out.
I don't know. What's your take, Bills?
I don't know. It's too early in the morning to think about that. But...
Yeah. I think you're sort of screwed either way, George.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, to be honest.
You can't get the one wood out and go, nah, they can't compete because, it's case by case, mate.
Well, unless they make their own category or something. Then
that's the other option. I mean, do you have a transition a category for transitioning people?
Yeah. This is some really good links we're going to here, boys.
So Jonesy,
all right,
let's transition away from that chat.
Okay, you put us down the fence. All right,
mate. Talk about fishing. I mean, you try to fish for us to say something that's going to get us in the shit. Okay, mate, I'm not going to take that bait. You look at the hook and swim away.
I just ask the questions. You guys say the answer. I go, I wouldn't have said that on podcast.
Guys, want to throw it out there. Want to see if you guys are ready to get reamed on social media. Anyone want to have a nibble? No, mate. Oh, it's like let that one go through the keeper. No shot offered, George. You got to pitch it up, son. Hey, one thing I want to talk about is 2020. Right, everyone is constantly talking about how shit it is as a year. Obviously, the global pandemic has completely turned it into a shit show. I thought it would be a good idea to talk about a year that is better than 2020, and go back to the archives, because it's going to be a good way to sort of get to know you guys a bit better as well. Because pre-2012, I don't really know much about you boys, other than, you used to ride and you grew up in NZ. But George, we threw it out there and you wanted to nominate a year to get the ball rolling, mate.
Yeah, I was just thinking that for me, when I look back at all the, growing up and all the good years, 2002 stands out as an absolute ringer. Because I just think about what I was doing in 2002 and how good things were. I didn't have any. I've actually since looked into 2002 and gone, "Oh, a few strange things happened in 2002." But personally, for me, 2002 was a great year. I was at Weimar Intermediate, and it was just a different time. I was just a better person back then. So, yeah, what were you boys doing in 2002?
You're a better person
in 2002. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why, let's go on with that. Why were you a better person then, George?
Just less inhibited. I remember in particular the things that stood out. I mean, it was quite strange. I think I had about 15 girlfriends in 2002, and they all lasted. We basically
You're like Tiger Woods.
Yeah, I was like, make it official at morning tea, and then by like the bus ride home, it was over. But the strange thing was I was at a school where both my parents were teachers, and I used to hate. They were my teachers, so like I had them for like one class a day kind of thing. But I used to hate them knowing anything about it, and I would get home and they would just sit there at dinner and be a bit quiet, and I'd be like, "So, how's Ashley?" And you just go, "Fuck," because everyone thought it'd be hilarious for them to go tell my parents, and that was the running gag. And all they did was just pretend they didn't know, but just happen to talk about that person at dinner each night or whatever. So 2002 was a ripper for me. Didn't ride a bike back then, but yeah.
How old were you both in 2002?
I was 12.
It must have been like 13 or 14, I suppose. So yeah, I must have been first year high school, I think. Was I? Or second year high school? 2002.
Were you running amok?
No, I was second year high school. Yeah, I was wagging maths class, 2002.
You were also a big dog in the New Zealand cycling team already by then, weren't you?
Nah. I didn't become a big dog until I'm still no, I wasn't. In 2002, do you know what I was doing? I was wagging class, and I was sitting in my mate's car in the student car park. Called it the Fridge. I can't remember even what sort of car it was. This big square white thing, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I'll never forget this. We were wagging class, and we're listening to some cassette tape. And I pushed the lighter in on the car, and I pulled it out, and then it was white. I was like, "Oh, it's not even working." And I put my finger on it.
Oh no!
And I just fucking burn a hole through my finger, basically. And I had to go to geography class next after wagging maths. And I was just sitting there in so much pain. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. So it was a horrible year for me. It was an absolute shocker.
Really? No, I was turning 21 in 2002. So I bombed out of uni in 2001. I was studying marketing, and then I lied to my parents and said, "Yeah, no, I'm enrolled in this film school," like it was a TAFE. And I thought, I'll just be a walk-up start. And the old man didn't believe me, so he rang the uni and said, "Oh, I'm just ringing to see if my son's enrolled next year." "Oh, he's not." "Yeah, sorry for wasting your time." And I was like, I'm busted. And he goes to me, "Listen, I'm not pissed off that you lied. You've been lying out your ass for the last 2 years about most things. You've got a whole year where you don't have any qualifications, no work, nothing. So good luck. Wish you all the best. It's going to be interesting." And so 2002 was my year where I had to sort of sort my shit out. And man, I had some jobs. I worked at a cheese factory, the King Island Dairy. I was on the factory line there. I worked at Paul's Dairy. I was in pallet repair. Like first day I rolled up, there was like pallets stacked 80 high, and the guy goes, right, you got to pull all the wood off and hammer new slats on all those pallets. I was thinking, fuck, this is shit work. So I went back to the guy who ran this employment agency and said to him, listen, mate, you need to get me some better work than this. And he goes, nah, perfect timing. This job's just come up and it's got your name written all over it. I go, what is it? He goes, you can be a formulator. I go, what the fuck's a formulator? He goes, you're gonna be making the stuff. I'm like, what stuff? He goes, toothpaste. And I'm like, wow, this is where my life's taking me. Like, I'm making toothpaste now. All right, settle up, let's go. So this guy showed me the ropes for like 2 weeks at this place called Ensign Laboratories. They used to make, shampoo and conditioner. And
so what brand was it? Was it Colgate or was it just
it was White Glow. It was like this premium one. Then we used to make home brand toothpaste as well. And this like you go in there and you'd make maybe 4 or 5 batches in this massive vat. And so that when the guy was teaching me, he said, listen, one really important thing to remember when making this toothpaste is you got a stopwatch here. And once all the ingredients are in this vat, you mix it for 15 minutes and you got to stop it bang on 15 minutes. That's the number one thing. Doesn't matter if you screw up the sizes of like the ingredients, just don't mix it too long. Yeah, mate. No dramas.
I've come from a cheese factory. I know what I'm doing.
So then, because 2002, I'm about to turn 21, like I'm out on the town every weekend and I'm coming into the factory on Mondays and I'm telling these blokes all sort of 50s and 60s stories from the weekend and they used to love it. So I remember this one Monday I went in and was telling them yarns from the weekend and I'm making a batch of toothpaste and this guy goes, hey, man, are you mixing a batch of toothpaste? It's been going for a while. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So I ran in there. It had been mixing for like 25 minutes. It was meant to be 15. So I've slammed the stop button. And you're meant to take a sample to the lab to test the thickness, and then they pass it on the line. They pump it in the tubes. And I've opened up the vat, and this thing just looked like a big tub of white water. Like, I've screwed, and there's 30 gram worth of ingredients. I remember taking it to get tested, and they test in the lab, and the guy goes, fuck's this? I go, it's toothpaste. He's like, okay. So he puts it down, goes to get a level, doesn't come up with anything. It's off the charts. And he's like, fuck, what do we do? So there's like 6 blokes in lab coats all staring at this tub of white water, and they come back and they said, all right, we've had to think about this, and we've come up with the idea, fuck it, it's only home brand, pump it out. So I wheeled it out to the production line. They pumped this white water into about 50,000 tubes. So all across Australia, people would have been opening up the home brands just on the toothbrush. And then they sacked me like the next day. They said, mate, this is just not working out. You've screwed up too many batches of toothpaste. I couldn't even hold that job. And then the day that they arseholed me, my car was like, wouldn't start. So I had to go back in and ask him for a push start. So the blokes that gave me the arse literally pushed me out of the toothpaste factory all in their white lab coats.
You should have emptied some of that toothpaste into your gas tank.
Yeah, so I didn't make it as a toothpaste technician. But there was some cracking movies that came out in 2002. I had to look at the list, like Catch Me If You Can, 8 Mile, Jackass, Gangs of New York, and then Eminem was at the top of his game. You had Nelly, Chili Peppers released By the Way, and then that was around the time that MP3s first come on the scene. Like 2001, I remember I had my first mobile phone that you could play MP3s on it. Yeah, and people freaking out that you didn't have to have CDs anymore. Like, and you had this little device that was, big as your hand that could fit, 400 songs on it. People's minds exploded. Like, no one knew how to react.
Do you remember the snipers in 2002? Do you remember the van driving around with the and what did they do? They punched out the tail lights.
No, they punched. I think they were shooting through the keyhole in the boot, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. And it was
the Washington sniper.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
I was on that, George. I reckon I was looking at 2002 last night online, and I reckon almost every year that we've lived, there's something memorable happens every year. There's always something that you remember. So there's the Washington snipers, the Bali bombings. Was in 2002.
Was that 2002?
Yeah, that was in 2002.
October.
Like, every year there's something happened that you remember, and you might not remember off the top of your head what year it happened, but when you look at it, you're like, oh shit, that happened that year. Like there's bloody things happening all the time.
Because remember, post September 11, post September 11, no one really heard about like terrorism and shit, and then it was popping up all the time, and then there was that whole you're constantly bombarded with, Al Qaeda and what's going on in Iraq, and there's heaps of tension. But then, like, no one really, you didn't think about it.
It's strange how like those things stick out so much though. Like if you think about like that, let's talk about it in like quantifying like numbers. So how many people died in the Washington sniper? I think like 7 or 8. And you think about that
10, I think,
that was the biggest news story of that year, of at least in terms of like negative news or like loss of life. You think about like all the things that happened around the world that year where mass people died, but like it's just the media, man. It's a conspiracy.
The Bali bombings. The Bali bombings.
Bali bombings was
it was like 300
bigger than that.
Yeah.
It wasn't. For some reason, it didn't scare people as much as people driving around in a pedo van, sniping people. You know what I mean? There was something like quite.
Yeah, well, that was. No one knew where they were. That was the problem.
Yeah,
they were like. It took them ages to find them because they were like, "Where the fuck are these guys shooting from?"
And they couldn't work it out.
Yeah, it's just I think it was an old man and his son, and they were just driving around, laying the back seats down, putting a rifle through a keyhole and popping people off.
You think that's strange? It must just the noise of a sniper rifle in a city must just, bounce around the walls so much that they just can't actually pinpoint the origin. Because surely you'd be like, oh, that sounded like it came from that van. Do you know what death really rocked me in 2002? Outside of the Bali bombings and the Washington snipers, the Queen's mother, she died in 2002.
Oh yeah,
she was 102 or 103 or something.
So so she wasn't there. Otherwise, she should be the Queen if she was the Queen's mum. But she wasn't the Queen's mum.
I don't know how all that works. If she was the Queen's mum, why didn't she?
Because she married in to the royal family. Lineage. Right. So right. She married probably Edward or something. Or probably that's what all the kings are called, weren't they?
George, King George, most of them.
So yeah, she married into the royal family. So therefore, she was just a beneficiary of the royal family and their perks.
It's funny. I was watching just on the royal family. I was watching a doco on Fergie and Andrew
from Black Eyed Peas.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit that I was like, wow, I didn't even know that. Like back in the early days, like she was a bit of a rogue royal and used to crack jokes and all this sort of stuff and just broke all the rules. And yeah, she was out of favor big time with the royal family. And then it went into all the stings. Remember when she got busted trying to sell, I think it was like 500 grand or something to get an introduction with Prince Andrew. That was when they had the news of the world stuff. And yeah, like they didn't really mention the Prince Andrew stuff with Epstein. Must have been an old doco, but when are they going to just hand in Andrew and just be done with him with all that sort of shit?
I think they have. Well, I think in terms of the royal family, he's been sort of ass-carded, hasn't he?
He'd have to.
Yeah, I don't think the Queen's. He doesn't. He's not a beneficiary of the royal anymore. Like he's whatever that they get paid basically to fucking stand around.
That's strange, eh? You get paid just because you were born. Is that not like I can't understand? I can't get my head around people who are royalists or love the royal family. Like they literally idolize people. All they've done is just been born, and then they're normally like pieces of shit because they've been, eaten out of the silver spoon since they were born. So they don't really develop any sort of
pieces of shit's a strong.
It's a good general rule of thumb though. With the exception, there's a couple of good ones. Diana, she was great.
I remember people.
Why are they famous?
Crying when Diana died. Like my mum.
Yeah, I mean, she was great though. I mean, she did do you remember when she walked through the minefield? Do you remember that? That's actually the one thing I remember watching on TV from her.
Well, you think Harry and Meghan couldn't have picked the worst time to leave the royal family, because they would have been thinking, oh, well, we've got a bit of a cash cow coming up. You know, we'll do acting, we'll do public speaking, we'll do all these events. And then COVID hits and it's like, ooh.
I reckon he must still be, or is he completely out of the royal family now? So when he decided to go to Canada and say, oh, I'm cutting my ties, he must lose all his perks as well. But he's just sitting there going, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm never going to be king. I'm never going to be anything other than just what I am right now. So what's the point of staying here? I got to just go. I've got to bloody follow these rules.
Exactly.
And eat scones.
He realised
and
all he
fucking
did was get born.
Pet grandma's swans, and like walk around, and he's just going, well, fuck this. I'm going to go to Canada and
what is the job? Like, what do they have to do? When you're part of the
personalities. And they just got and they've constantly got a light shining on them. They can't step a foot wrong. I mean, poor old Andrew, like, fucking hell, like, can't even get away with sex trafficking.
I think it's a bit like Mitch Docker. They make a bit off merchandise, don't they? The royal families.
I got this for free.
Do you know what else I'm looking at? 2002 I'm actually just trying to find out who's the New Zealand cycling champ in 2002. And when I Google stuff,
Gordy.
Was it?
I think so.
So I tried to Google, and all that comes up is a picture of me losing to Shane Archibald in 2020.
2002 was in the Nationals were in I don't know where they were. I reckon it would have been Gordy, because that was before the Elite Nationals. The Elite Nationals only came in 2008 or something. So it was just the Club Nationals in October. So all the pros were not there.
Another random debut show back then was the Osbournes.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
How big that was?
Yeah. I watched that Friday night.
Yeah. That was pre the boom with reality TV and cooking. Remember all the cooking shows? They sort of hit about 07, 08, but that was pre-Facebook. That was pre-Twitter. That was pre all that shit.
Imagine if we had to put this podcast out. Imagine if we put this podcast out in 2002, how famous and big we would be. We'd have no competition.
One would listen.
No competition.
Yeah, but no one would be able to listen to it. You couldn't listen to podcasts in 2002. How would you get it? You had to do the old dial-up when you go the dung, dung, dung. Remember that thing?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, Mum, get off the phone! And you'd be like screaming at your mum, and she'd be like, someone trying to ring, and you couldn't go on MSN.
It was the other way around for me. My old man would be like, fucking get off the computer! I'm waiting for a call!
Yeah. Gary's trying to ring! And you just be there, like, tuning up girls on MSN.
Then I get off the computer so that the call could come through, and then the phone would ring, and he'd go, who the fuck calls during the sports news? Why are they calling during the sports news? I'm like, well, you fucking go back on MSN.
And that was around when Napster and all that was still kicking, wasn't it? We used to get the legal downloads.
Oh, I remember LimeWire, and you had to give your computer AIDS just to like download a song. You literally sacrifice your computer. You'd be like, "Sorry, mate, but I want this song."
I can't wait. J-Lo. I want to listen to Nickelback. How You Remind Me as much as possible. Oh, yeah.
And then sometimes you get the shit versions, but you're like, "Oh, it's better than nothing." It sort of skip a bit.
Took days to download, and the computer doesn't work now, but I got it.
You know how you're talking about MP3s? I remember very clearly this one I had. It was like a pocket. It looked like a little USB stick kind of thing, but it had a little circle with left and forward and back, and it could only hold 14 songs. So at all times I had 14 songs on shuffle, and I could go on the computer and choose which 14 songs. And when I was working in the school holidays, I was just on a working in a nursery, like a tree nursery, and I used to have to just pick, all right, these are my 14 songs for an 8-hour day, and by the end of the day, fuck, I hated those songs.
Yeah, just having them. Hey, someone made a good point. Imagine, this is not 2002 related, but imagine if COVID hit in 1993, how much of a punish late fees from Blockbuster would have been. Like, remember those new release fines? Like, fuck, that would add up.
$12 a day. Do you know there's still one Blockbuster that exists? The last Blockbuster exists in Alaska. I saw this the
Yeah.
other day. It's like,
That's where we spoke about this on an episode a few weeks ago.
oh, do we?
John Oliver sent
John
a bit
Oliver.
of memorabilia from Gladiator to them.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, that's
Russell Crowe had his fire sale, yeah.
Hey, we did him for Legion of Valiant. Who's our Legion of Valiant today?
Yeah, well, it's good little transition. Key word of the episode again, George. So I reckon we're going to do our first fictional character. Well,
I thought we did the first with the Old Testament God. Some would argue he was fictional.
Yeah. He was the innovator, of fiction. So we're going to do our first fictional character, and he's a bloody famous. Everyone knows who he is, I think. If you don't, well, oh well. Walter White, or AKA Heisenberg from Breaking Bad. Is he a legend or is he a bellend? Because there's a very strong argument either way with Walter.
Well, it's a show that's very close to my heart because I often get compared to Hank. You know that?
You do look like
Yeah, you do, eh?
Yeah. I've heard from many people it's a dead ringer. So yeah.
I thought when you said it's close to your heart, I thought you meant because you come from the meth capital of the world.
Yeah, one of them.
another job he did in 2002.
Yeah, that's right. I went from toothpaste to meth, and left that mixing for too long. But the thing is, with Walter, he's a likable dude, but he still had choices, you know. He still chose to go down a pretty dark path, and I reckon early days it was all about, you know, he was crook. So the premise was he did it because his wife had cancer, didn't it?
No, he had terminal cancer.
He had cancer.
He had cancer, and he was a ticking time bomb. Basically, he had like a month or a couple of weeks to live, basically, and he was a chemistry teacher, and they were effectively flat broke. And he had a disabled son. They had another. She was pregnant. His wife was pregnant. So he thought, man, I've got to leave these guys some money. I can't. Like, I'm the breadwinner here in this family, effectively, and the bread's stale. So I'm gonna make some cash, and I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna die in a month. Fuck it, doesn't matter. Take the risk. So he was cooking meth, and he thought, I can leave some bucks behind for the family. So his idea was kind-hearted. I don't see how he kind of ignored the fact that it was going to ruin a million other people's lives just to make his family's life a bit better. But anyway, that's what he chose to do.
So essentially, we could sum up and say that maybe potentially did the wrong thing, but maybe for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. So he exactly that. He did the wrong thing. What he was doing was noble, but he did it the wrong way. But he didn't see any other way. Like, he was a bloody chemistry teacher. He's like, man, I can cook the shit out of some meth, and I'm going to sell the best product ever. That's all I can. He was tailoring to his skills.
Well, maybe Walter needs to take a bit more bloody responsibility for their dire financial situation to start off with. maybe he shouldn't have made some bad investments. Maybe, he needs to
that's what happened. He got flicked, actually, remember? Because he was a genius. He worked with that chick, what's her name? Gretchen or something? And her husband, and he came up with this idea of creating some scientific thing, and then they stole the idea, those two, and made millions and millions of dollars and became wealthy. So he had a chip on his shoulder because he got flicked from that idea and was just making $40,000 a year working in
but again, sorry to sound too hard on him, but you got to deal with this sort of shit. I mean, people get flicked all the time. And come up with another idea.
Don't you got to commend his like creativity? Like, that's thinking outside the box. Like, if I was like shit out of money, the first thing that doesn't come to my head is let's cook some meth. I mean,
yeah, but why couldn't he come up with a chemically, like, think of how much money people are making out of meat-free sausages. Why couldn't he come up with something like that, like using chemistry, something that is a legit profession?
And he
way of mushing up soybeans.
he became so savage as well, like throughout, you know, when he became Heisenberg, and like ultimately he's a lovable. The Breaking Bad's an unbelievable series. It's one of the best TV shows of all time, and they did so well. The creators of it, you know, when they make the villain so lovable, like you just like, I know he's a badass, but man, I love him. It's like watching Peaky
Do you think
Blinders
it's
with
strange
Bobby.
when you watch movies? And you watch movies and like you just like the bad person, like, you know what I mean? And they're just doing rogue stuff. I mean, but it's because from their point of view, you want them to succeed. So you're like, oh, I hope this guy doesn't get caught cooking meth. Whereas in like day-to-day life, you're like, wouldn't mind those boys getting caught, you know?
But I think like most villains, you know, obviously you can only tell a story if it's a movie or whatever in 90 minutes. Most of them are probably ripping blokes. You know, they've always got a posse of guys around them. Like if they were an absolute dick, they would have been shot by then. You know, so there's probably likability in all the villains. But I think in this case, you know, you can't overlook the fact that he's a murderer. He cooked drugs. I'm going to have to just go straight in and say, sorry, Walter, you're a bellend, mate. Like, I understand you're trying to do the right thing by your family, but it's just too much blood on your hands.
Yeah, look, he like I say, man, he's a lovable character. I'm actually reading his book at the moment, Bryan Cranston, and it's quite a good book. He talks about how he plays that role, Walter White, how he because also in the show he's Walter White to his family and he's Heisenberg to the drug community, and he switches between those two personalities so well, and he can literally go home. He's hiding a deep dark secret from his family, but he can go home and be like the Walter White that they know and love, and then he can go out into the streets and he's just this badass, like he's scary, you know. So yeah, he's a bellend, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with legend, just because we're leaving Heisenberg out of this. We're going with Walter White. I'm going to go absolute legend. Love him.
All right. Well,
all right.
You're against trans athletes, but you're up drug dealers. So can't read you, George.
Hey, I'm not getting. I posed the question. I just posed the question.
Oh yeah,
you're a hard book to read. Mate. Shit, you're a hard book to read.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to see what the listeners think about that, because yeah, like we just explained, he is a lovable villain. So yeah, we'll see. Obviously, no one's going to advocate that a drug dealer in real life is a legend. They're absolute fuckwits.
No,
but in terms, and we'll make that very clear that we feel the same way. But we're talking in terms of a TV character and the premise of a show.
If you're listening to this and you're really good at chemistry and you feel in any way that we're condoning you going down the path of making meth, please just don't do it. We're begging you.
Go to the toothpaste
factory.
Find
another way.
Help Jonesy with that toothpaste mix.
Hey, before we go, boys, I remember on your run sheet, Bills, you wanted to talk about things that piss you off. There's a few things in Melbourne at the moment that are really, really pissing me off. We're in the middle of a second wave, and we've got these absolute fucksticks that won't stick by the rules. They've filmed something on the news last night, and people are testing positive for COVID, and they're going door knocking now to ask questions about, you know, where have you been, what have you been doing, so that they can trace this shit. One, some people are knocking back the authorities and saying, no, I don't have to answer those questions. You know, those people are giving me the shits. They filmed someone going who tested positive. Oh, yeah, my husband's waiting for his test results. Okay, can we speak to him? No, he's down the shops doing some stuff.
Oh, no.
This thing is getting out of control. And then there was this absolute spanner the other day going through a road block, and she was being questioned, and she thinks it's a conspiracy and all this sort of shit. And she's questioning the officer going, I don't have to answer you. Have I done anything wrong? And then wouldn't tell him shit and drove off and started laughing. It's got to stop. These people that are just fucking it for everyone, it does my head in. They reckon that 9 out of 10 people that were tested for COVID that should have been in isolation were not. They weren't staying at home. And now we've got this absolute shitstorm on our hands in Melbourne. Yeah, That's
Why
the
is it
last
like that
week.
so prominent in Melbourne? I mean, I think about New Zealand, like there's been some escapees, and I just like this crazy situation where these just happened last week where a family came back to New Zealand and they're obviously in isolation, and their father had just died. He had a stroke and he died, and they knew they were going to get caught if they knew it was very illegal to escape this isolation. But he broke through a window, ran out for 3 or 4 hours to just be by his father's dead body. Didn't stop anywhere else on the way and all this stuff, just to get a bit of closure before they buried him. And then he rang the police and said, right, basically, this is where I am. This is what I've done. I just needed to do that. Now
That's a real Walter White Heisenberg example again, eh?
Did a bad thing.
Did a bad
but
thing
for the right
reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking balance.
Whereas this guy who's waiting for his results, just nicking down a Woolies, like, fuck. Use your
It's
head.
like the anti-maskers. They're like, I saw this thing where they're arguing like, well, the anti-maskers have this sort of the sign saying, well, if your mask works, then why do I need to wear mine? But it's like,
there's some brain dead people out there, eh?
I know.
Yeah.
Brain dead.
Yeah. And now it's
funny.
I was just going to say, it's getting to the point where people are getting really angry. And when you're in this situation, they just want to blame someone because it feels better. It's Dan Andrews. He fucked it up. But at the end of the day, like, it's just not efficient either. Like, you've just got to be like, all right, well, just get through the next month, 2 months. I think people are now going, well, let's have the tightest restrictions ever and knock this thing on the head. Otherwise, they don't
Is
know.
it tighter than your original lockdown? Is it your current situation?
So no, they're locked down Melbourne Metro and Mitcham Shire. So I'm in Geelong, so we're not part of that. We're not stage 4, but it's only a matter of time because they're getting around 300-400 every day. It's been like that for the last week, so it's just exploded. I think there's some good over 3,000 active.
They're talking about this vaccine rolling it out before the end of the year. So hopefully this isn't the norm. I mean, how weird is it for you? Like, I don't know if you feels like you'll be doing the same as me lately. I've had in the last week, say 2-3 weeks, I've had 4 duffers up my nose for the COVID test and like bubbles. Like I was originally meant to go across to Burgos with a group of guys. We're going to all drive over together, save some, save the environment. And but there's a policy, like you're only allowed individuals in cars, or you're allowed, like internal policies of teams. You're only allowed, there's all these bubbles, everything, like just the hoops you have to jump through to get to a bike race at the moment are nuts. And when I get there tonight, I'm not allowed to see anybody. I'm not allowed to stop on there. I mean, I have to drive through Yaida, which is in lockdown, but apparently you can drive through, but you're just not allowed to stop. So you got to check like your petrol. You got all these things you have to think about now, all these new challenges. Like I'm not even allowed to leave for this race. I'm waiting on these test results. So I've had 2 tests in the last few days, and until I even have those results, I'm not allowed to even step in the car. So I'm hoping to hurry up because I got to be there before tonight.
Yeah. Well, look, when I said I want to talk about something that pissed me off on the daily basis, I was going to talk about my washing machine, but
Well, you're not living near Melbourne, mate. We just smash with this every day.
Like my fucking washing machine, man. Honestly, like you put it in, I got to find a way to silence this bloody thing because I always cock up. I put the washing in, and it takes about an hour or whatever for its cycle. And about 2/3 of the way through the cycle, I've just got home from training. I've had lunch. I'm starting to doze off. I'm like, I'll have a little nap. And as I just start to rest my eyes, the washing machine's like, Sam, finished. Sam, finished.
Sounds like you're old man on the internet.
Then it chills out. It chills out for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it remembers it's full again. And it's like, hey, I'm still full.
What are you doing? I finished. I told you. Go and get me. Pisses me off.
And then you're just so angry that you don't. And then it gets that smell. And then you have to do it. And you're fuck.
You have to watch it again and go through the whole cycle.
I got a sporadic dryer. I got a dryer that's can't be asked half the time. Like you throw in one too many towels, it's like I'm not doing that. press a few different buttons, do whatever you want. I'll spin it for 10 seconds and then fuck off. So I'm the opposite. It's got no passion. The dryer's got no passion.
I know. I can't. I mean, it does a good job, but fucking, she lets you know. You know when it's done a good job. All right.
All right. Well, what's that?
You're training, George.
Yeah, I gotta. What should we do? Go to an hour and a half. Meet at mine.
Yeah, I'll meet at yours in half an hour or something.
Yeah, half an hour. Go 10:30. 25 minutes.
All right.
Well,
all the best at your races, boys.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah.
We'll see everybody soon. And as you can see, this episode was brought to you by Speaker City and Life in the Peloton. So thanks for the advertising, boys. Life in the Peloton, don't listen to it until you listen to ours, same as What's Occurring, all the other podcasts out there. Subscribe,
and if you want to listen to this fantastic interview with David Miller, tune into Backstage with Dan Jones.
I'm going to chuck that on for my drive to Burgos.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you boys talk about.
It'll make the drive go so much faster, trust me.
Okay, all right.
Thanks for listening.
All right, boys. Cheers, guys.
See you, boys.
Next time.